All right, it is 6 p.m. We do have a quorum. I'm going to go ahead and call this evening's meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Florence to order. First item on this evening's agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 23rd, 2021 meeting. Minutes have been submitted to members of the board at ample time to review. Are there any amendments or changes that need to be made?
None here. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Have a second?
A second.
Deborah Moses, second.
Got that. That's all right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carried. The minutes are approved. Before we continue, let me remind everybody on the board that if you are going to make a motion, that you identify yourself first. That way we know who you are through these wonderful masks. Second item on this evening's agenda is BZA hearing number 2021-015. Request for a variance from the street side setback requirements, table 2-5.2.1 of the Unified Development Ordinance for a residential lot. Location is 221 North Point Drive, tax map number 01472-01-111. Owner of record is the City of Florence. The applicant is the City of Florence Community Development Department. Zoning district is Neighborhood Conservation 6.1. The board will now hear from city staff.
Good evening. There we go. Yes, the property owner, which is the City of Florence, is requesting a variance from the street side setback requirement to site a house on a vacant lot in the North Point Subdivision. This is the vicinity map. North Point Subdivision is located off of North Irby Street at Williams Boulevard, just north of Williams Middle School. This is the location map for the lot. It is at the corner of North Point Drive and North Point Drive, and it's the lot next to it. These were standard sized lots, and it's zoned NC 6.1, which is requires a minimum 6,000 square foot lot with a 60-foot width. This lot was the lot next to it. A house was built on it and was accidentally built on the property line. So the city went in and redrew the property line, as you can see on the plat, and that resulted in making the lot on the corner a little bit narrower. And so as a result, the street side setback in that district is supposed to be 10 feet off of the street side property line. But by doing that, it would push the house to be a little too close to the house next to it at the front setback line. So the request is to move the house back so that they haven't totally decided where they want to put it, but they are asking for a 5-foot setback variance so that they can put it up to 5 feet from the side property line. They're going to see jiggling the property line or the house location around just a little bit. So I'm gonna need my pen. So these are some site plans or site photos of the house. You can see the lot on the corner and the house next to it. That lower picture is just looking down that side property line. Once the house is built, it will not look any different. It'll still be the 10 feet from the house next door. It'll just be slightly closer to the road, and there are, I believe, is about 8 feet from the edge of the sidewalk to the property line itself. So there'll still be a good 10 feet between the edge of the house and the sidewalk. So visually, it should not make much difference for that as well. So that concludes staff's report.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for city staff or members of the board? All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody wishing to speak for or against this variance application? Oh. Did you want to speak? Okay. Please step up to the microphone. Please state your name clearly.
I'm Tony Yates.
Tony Eighth?
Yates.
Yates.
Y-A-T-E-S.
Okay.
Sorry.
If you don't mind, ma'am, I'm going to swear you in.
Okay.
Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
All right. You may proceed.
I'm just concerned. I'm the house that's next to it.
Okay.
So my house was actually built on that property line, like over the lawn. So the city is supposed to be fixing that and deeding part of that lot to me since it's off. The builder didn't build the house right.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure with this setback or like this being approved that it's still going to give me the proper distance I'm supposed to have with putting a house so close to my house. That's my only concerns.
Okay.
Being that it's-
Even with the additional deeded property that you're supposed to receive, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And then that's another thing. It hasn't been deeded to me yet.
Okay.
So technically it's still the city's property. They
Right.
made plans to deed it to me, but they haven't finished it. I called my lawyer today to ask, and it's not like nobody gave me anything to sign or,
Okay.
so I just want to make sure that's clear too.
Okay. So essentially, we have two questions. One, you just want to know what the distance is going to be between your house and the proposed new house.
Yes.
And then two, the update on the deeded property.
Yes.
Okay. We can help you with number one. I don't know about number two for right now. So let's start with the top of the list. Is there anybody from city staff that can kind of do a rough, Ms. Billy? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
We don't have a mic, so I'll just try to speak
Oh,
up.
okay.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties with our new AV system.
I got you.
But yes, the whole reason for this request and the sliding over is the property line to ensure that Ms. Yates, one, her house is compliant with code
Sure.
as it exists, because it was built very close, and a little bit over the property line in one area. And we have actually recorded a plat at the county courthouse that gives her this land to make sure that her lot is 5 feet from the property line.
Okay.
I'm not sure if a deed accompanied that. I'll have to check with the city attorney on that.
They haven't.
But that is definitely the city's. If it didn't, then we'll.
Yeah, I'll
I'll
talk
check
with
with the
mine.
city attorney. He's been on vacation this past week, but I think he gets back this week. But I'll check with him as soon as I see him and verify that occurs. But that's really the whole purpose of this, is to make sure that you get appropriate land on the side of your house. You'll have at that front corner, you'll have 5 feet from your property line, and then the setback will then, this variance request will allow the house that gets built on the other side of you there to be 5 feet. So there'll be a minimum of 10 feet between the two houses, if not more, depending on how it's placed on the property. But the awkwardness of it is that all of the property lines through there were not perpendicular to the street. They all ran at an angle. So when the
Okay.
house was placed on the lot, the angle of that lot kind of messed up through there.
I got you.
So we're essentially straightening that back out.
Okay.
And in doing that, Ms. Yates will get actually a little sliver of property in a larger yard.
Okay. So if we were to pass this variance, her lot would still be in compliance?
Yes.
Okay. Does that answer your question for the first one?
Yes, I just want to make sure it's going to be right. Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I mean, we can make it a condition, or a motion, approval on that, and you could work into that or condition that with the city verifying that the property is deeded over or in the ownership of Ms. Yates. the
Yes,
sliver-
that's what I
the
want to
sliver
make sure, because
property.
it's not deeded over to me. It
Okay.
hasn't. So what they're proposing is technically my property is still on it. So
Sure.
I just want to make sure it's right.
Okay. Well, if you'll bear with us as we mumble through the words a little bit, but we'll put that in with any sort of motion either for or against the request. All right.
Because that is definitely the city's intent.
Okay.
to fix that.
Cool.
That's it.
Anything else, Ms. Yates?
No, that's all.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank
All right.
you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak either for or against the variance request? No. All right. There being none, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request.
I'd like to,
Yes, sir,
wanna
Mr. Chico.
Yeah,
Sure.
Mr. Chico, I want to clarify something from the city. So, the other houses in this neighborhood, are they around that 10-foot spacing
They are.
approximately? And purpose of this variance is to ensure there's at least 10 feet between Miss Yates' house and any new house they build.
That's correct. The side setback, you know, because it's a corner lot, the side setback along the street side is 10 feet. So allowing us to slide that over for that street side to 5 feet instead of the required 10 feet would allow us to get the distance on the other side.
So the variance is to shift the house away from Miss Yates' house towards the road.
That's correct. The variance request is actually for the opposite side of the lot as
Okay.
Miss Yates, so it shifts it away from her house.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I fully understood.
Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
The lot on the corner, that's the city owns that property.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the city going to develop that property or?
Yes, ma'am. We intend to build another home on that property.
And will the city be, the setback lines will be, was it 10 for that as well?
That's right. If it's an interior lot, the required setback is 5 feet. Because that's a corner lot, that second street side lot would be required to be 10 feet. So we're asking for a reduction to 5 feet on that side.
And so this variance will cover that as well, as well as Miss Yates' property.
That's right. It's the variance is not for Miss Yates' property, but it helps shift the home away from her.
And will cover not only the property of the cities, but also Miss Yates, which
That's
she
right. It would
is
allow
concerned.
the home to slide away from hers when it's constructed.
And both being in compliance.
That's right, being in compliance.
Gotcha.
All right, any other questions for members of the board? All right, there being none, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request. And as a reminder, when you are making a motion, please identify yourself first.
Mr. Chairman, what was the provision that was discussed?
We haven't quite discussed the exact wording, but it would be something along the lines of you either approve, if you approve this variance request, it'll be dependent upon the additional property being placed under Ms. Yates' ownership.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I mean, you got nervous, but basically, if you want to approve this variance request, you can add an additional amendment to say dependent upon the additional property that we discussed being placed under Ms. Yates' ownership. Yes. And again, if you get the wording not exactly like that, it's okay. We're just attaching a condition to this request.
You could reference the plat in the packet that illustrates that remainder being combined with her part.
Okay, and that's, okay.
And I've lost that.
Is that attachment E?
Thank you. That's correct.
Yeah.
Page 14, attachment E.
Yeah.
This is Larry Adams. I'll make a motion to, that we grant the request for variance based upon the following facts. Excuse me, number one, that the variance from the terms of the zoning ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest when, because of special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provision will in this individual case result in an unnecessary hardship, and that the unusual shape of the lot, the variance is necessary to enable the construction to be pushed back, as well as keeping away from Miss Yates' home, and keeping in those already constructed in the manner of the same neighborhood and not detract from the overall character of the neighborhood. Number two, that the spirit of the zoning ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done, because the intent of the street setback is to ensure the visibility is maintained at the intersection, as well as because the width of the public right-of-way to the sidewalk as well as the proposed location of the house will not interfere with that visibility. Also at this moment, I'd like to also state under that one, referring to attachment E, plat is page 14 in our current packet. That Miss Yates' property line and the deed to that be a condition of this, that the city work with the attorneys in order to get that deeded over to her, so that way they maintain the distance between the two homes. Number 3, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Namely, it's the irregular shape of that lot resulting in that unavoidable redrawing as referred to the plat that we just discussed on the interior property line, limits the buildable area of this potential home. Number 4, that these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. That the shape, again, of this lot is particular, that was distorted after accommodations were made for the house constructed next door. Number 5, that because of these conditions, the application of the zoning ordinance, the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of this property by, again, requiring the 10-foot street setback, would put the two houses too close together. Therefore, the city is deeding that extra land between the two homes over to Ms. Yates as this condition in this, as well as the aesthetics of the neighborhood. Number 6, that the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by granting of this variance, because the variance will not impair the character of the neighborhood, either the visually or the physically aesthetics, because the house will be consistent with the others in the neighborhood, and it will exceed the minimum setback distance from the sidewalk, if not the property line as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Adams. Do we have a second?
Nathaniel Poston, we have a second.
All right, all those in favor of granting the variance request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The variance request is approved. Ms. Yates, thank you so much for coming. You're welcome to stay if you want to, but your part in this is over. But if you have any other questions, please let us know. Next item on this evening's agenda is hearing number BZA-2021-16. A request of variance from the setback requirements in Table 2-5.2.1 of the Unified Development Ordinance for a residential lot. Location is 403 North McQueen Street, tax map number 90072-12-023. Owner of record is Della Baker Sprawl. The applicant is Della Baker Sprawl. The zoning district is Neighborhood Conservation-6.2. The board will now hear from city staff.
Thank you. We have a similar situation where the property owner is requesting a variance from the front and rear setback requirements to place a house on an oddly shaped lot. This lot is located on North McQueen Street, just north of West Darlington Street. As you can see, it is a rather, the official lot is, I guess you could say it's flag shaped. With the regular frontage, but the back half of the parcel is basically chopped in half. It is zoned NC 6.2, as is everything around it, which allows only single-family homes. The lot overlaps this lot on West Marion Street, and the property owner of 403 North McQueen has traditionally maintained that area that's in the red. In fact, they put a fence down their property line, and no one has, her mother had lived here for many years, and no one had said anything about it. Everybody just assumed that they owned that property. And then after her mother passed and they had the parcel surveyed, they found out that actually they did not own that section of it. And the person who owns 405 West Marion Street, the property just changed hands, and she is talking with the new owner, discussing the option of purchasing that lot, but that has not gone through then. And she has recently demolished the house at 403 and has picked out a house plan that she would like to build, and she'd like to get started on that as soon as possible, which, you know how real estate goes, she doesn't want to wait until that all gets clarified. So that's why she's asking for the variance. Additionally, most of the houses along here are located about 8 to 10 feet from the property line, and then there's another 20 feet from the property line to the pavement edge of the roads. And the ordinance does permit that front setbacks can be averaged to match those along that section of the block. So that is the reason that even though the official setback is 25 feet, because the average here is 8 to 10 feet, she's requesting that it be set at 10 feet for the front of her house as well. This is the house plan that she wants to put on there. And again, North McQueen Street's there on the left, and the driveway would be about 10 feet from the from the front property line to the edge of the garage, but because of the deep right-of-way, she would have plenty of room to park a car outside the garage if necessary. And in the rear, as you can see, there's a good 58 feet from the lower half of the house to the other rear property line, and then for 25 feet of it, it will only be about 13 feet from the rear, and the normal setback is 20 feet. So she's asking basically for a variance of 7 feet in the rear there. As I said, the setbacks generally are 25 for the front, 5 for the side, which this house meets, the new house meets it very well, and then 20 in the rear. So because of the unusual shape of the lot, the variance is necessary to enable the construction of a new house in a way that does not detract from the overall character of the neighborhood, because it'll be set up where all the other houses are. It will blend in with the neighborhood. The intent of the rear setback is to ensure a sufficient backyard is provided. The variance will put it 13 feet from the backyard of the neighboring lot and set the front of the house to line up with the existing. The irregular shape of the lot does limit the buildable area. And the shape of this particular parcel is not typical for residential lots in this neighborhood. The vast majority of them are rectangular. The requiring the 20-foot rear setback does severely limit the buildable area available. And granting the variance will not impair the character of the neighborhood either visually or physically, because the house will be consistent with the others, and it will only affect the backyard of the property that's perpendicular to it. And that house will still be 30 feet from the back of its property line. So that concludes staff's report.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for city staff from members of the board?
Nope, you answered mine with the 30 foot on the other house, so thank you for that.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody that wishes to speak either for or against the variance request? All right. Did Ms. Sproul indicate that she was going to try to call in? Or?
She lives in Anderson, and I have her number, so I can call her if you have a question for her.
Okay. Are there any questions via telephone, if we need to, for Ms. Sproul from members of the board? All right. There being none, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, ma'am, Ms. Moses.
You said the house has been demolished. That's 403 McQueen Street. It's already demolished. There's nothing
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
And she's rebuilding on this property. Is she coming to live in this on this property
I believe it's a rental.
or a rental?
She lives in Anderson.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
This is Larry Adams. I'll move that we, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna do it, but you
I move that we grant the request for a variance based upon the following facts. Number one, that the variance from the terms of the zoning ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest when, because of special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provision will in this individual case result in unnecessary hardship. That because again, the unusual shape of this lot as well, the variance is necessary to enable the construction of the new home in the manner that it does not distract from the overall characteristic of the neighborhood. That the spirit of the zoning ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done, because the intent of the rear setback is to ensure that there is a sufficient backyard to be provided. The variance will allow that from the 13 feet instead of the 20 feet as the ordinance. The backyard of the neighboring lot, and set the front of the house to align with all the other existing homes in the neighborhood. Number 3, that there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. As we've said, the irregular shape of the lot does make it, limits the buildable area. Number 4, that these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity, and that the shape, again, of this property parcel is not typical, as we've seen from the staff report, so residence lots in this neighborhood. Number 5, that because of these conditions, the application of the zoning ordinance to a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property by requiring that 20-foot setback from the rear, severely limits the buildable area and space of this lot. And then number 6, that the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by granting of the variance, because the granting of this variance will not impair the character of the neighborhood, either visually, physically, aesthetically, because the house will be consistent with the others, and it will only affect the backyard of the neighboring property, as well as the owner is in negotiations of potentially purchasing that piece of parcel from the neighbor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Adams. Do we have a second?
Chico, I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chico. All those in favor of granting the variance request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This is Mr. Tuning. I vote opposed. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The variance request is approved. There being no other items on this evening's agenda, is there any bit of information city staff wishes to share with the board?
Just as I typically do, I'll give you an update on the comprehensive plan process.
Okay.
We have wrapped up our comprehensive plan advisory council meetings with the consultants. They plan to have us a draft version of the comprehensive plan hopefully by November. Once we complete a staff review of that, I'll likely push it out to our advisory council and our boards and commissions and such. So look forward to some exciting reading in your future. But we anticipate having that before for public hearing and city council towards the first of the year.
Okay.
So,
Now, is that going to be presented to city council?
it will be, yes.
Okay,
It will
all
be
right.
presented to the city council, probably, and in more detail to the planning commission as
Okay.
well, so.
Wonderful.
Mhm. And I'll also let everyone know that over at our recreation department over at Barn Street, we are having a trunk or treat event tonight despite the rain. We've moved it indoors, so bring the kiddos out.
Excellent.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
I do want to applaud everybody on the board for dressing up this evening. Your costumes look wonderful, so thank you guys very much.
We all wore masks.
We all wore
That's
masks.
right.
That's right. Are there any other items anybody from the board needs to bring up? Any exciting news? No? Go ahead.
You ready?
Ready.
This is Mr. Adams. I will make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned.